All right. Can you see it? Yes. All right. So at Visible Body, we're always adding new content and we're adding new features, and we think everyone should and would love them. But we do like to get feedback and kind of understand how we're doing. There are a couple different ways to do that. Right now, I'm on an iPad, so I'm on the App Store. This is our app listing for Visible Body Suite. In case people don't know, you can access Visible Body Suite. If you have a subscription, you can get it on any iOS device, most Android devices, and access it on the web from a computer. But a good way to take the temperature of how people are feeling is we look at the App Store and we see, we check our reviews. 4.8 is pretty good, 4.8 out of 5. And then we can go in here and see what people are writing and saying that they like or, wishing they had more of. So this is one way we get information. And another way is we collect usage statistics that let us know what people are actually doing in the app. So I'm going to open the app here. I'm on an iPad and I'm using an Apple Pencil, which that might look a little different depending on some of the screens with some searching. So the first thing we want to talk about is how to get to content, right? We know that time is valuable to people. That might be your greatest resources, your time. And there's a lot in Visible Body Suite. For anyone who's been, a user of Visible Body apps in the past, you might recognize this is our home screen. You might recognize some of these things as separate apps in the past, but we've spent the last, I don't know, maybe a year or two consolidating it all under the umbrella of Visible Body Suite. So when you get here, hopefully, we like the menu. We think it's beautiful. We think it's very useful, but we really don't want you on the menu. We want you in the content. So the first thing we're going to talk about is searching or browsing or getting to the content that you want. I think it's easier if I start with browsing, and that is exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like anyone who just Black Friday or Cyber Monday shopped, where you open something up and then there's just a lot of stuff there, and you scroll through until you see something you like, right? And then from there you can maybe filter down or find a little bit from there. So I think we're going to come here with something in mind, like maybe searching for the heart or the circulatory system, but just a quick overview on how the app is organized. I think it might be useful. So I'm going to first go into human anatomy and just talk about. So now I'm inside. Up here is showing I'm inside of human anatomy, and then across the top are things that we call subsections, and a lot of these are topics of study, right? So a good use of browsing might be if you know what's here. You might say, "Oh, embryology. I'd like to see everything they have in embryology." Click into the subsection, and here you go. Now you're sort of browsing through these thumbnails of what we call quick views, right? Just open one, get in here just to show you these are all 3D models. You can dissect them all down. And go back to the menu. So that's a good example of a reason you might want to be a browser. Someone who comes in here and just pokes around. Another good reason might be if you're someone who's, muscles of kinesiology or a bodywork person, you might be interested in, if you look across the top here, you might be interested in maybe muscle actions. And this is a good way to see them all grouped by region. Right? In case anyone hasn't seen a muscle action, it's a 3D model that moves in real time. And you can go in here and learn about different things to get any view you want. Another reason you might be in here as a browser might be maybe you're looking for pathologies. So down here in the physiology pathology app, I can go in and scroll through all of the pathologies here. And this is a mixture of content types. So we've got 3D views, we've got 3D lessons, we've got probably histology slides, we've got microanatomy, we've got animations. Anything on the topic of pathology would be in here. All right, so now I'm going to be a browser that maybe has something in mind, right? Let's say maybe I'm looking for the heart, and maybe I'm smart enough to know, oh, that's human anatomy. I'll go in there, and you wind up in this systems menu. I can scroll down until I find circulatory system views, and then I can scroll through for quite a while here. All right, this is my little scroll bar down here, and you can see there's a lot of stuff in here. You might find what you like. Sometimes people ask, well, how did you organize this thing? Like, why did you put certain things first and why did you put other things at the end? And it was really, we just wanted to give a good cross section of things up front. And we figured once you've scrolled, maybe once you've scrolled this far, you're sort of in no man's land. But I want to show you some ways to get to that content, a little, I guess, just to refine your search a little bit, right? Because you haven't searched anything. You've just gone, you browsed in 2 layers deep, and maybe you found what you want, maybe you didn't. But what some people use and some people don't. Up here we have this thing that says filter results by name, and I'm gonna write heart down here. This is where having an Apple Pencil is kind of cool. I can write heart, and it can understand what I wanted, and it's gonna filter my results for me. Right, it's going to keep them in the system and just sort of filter that down. So now you can see my scroll bar for circulatory is a little shorter. And then you can refine this even further. Maybe you want to see, maybe you don't really, you don't want to do any work today. You just want to watch a video. Up in the corner here, we have this little filter button. And by default, it gives you everything, but I can click animations. And then now I'm just browsing through animations related to the heart. All right, so that's how you would use the app as someone browsing. And now I'm going to show you probably the better method. And I would say, I think from our analytics, about half the people that use the app use the search feature. And this is called content search. We try to force this on you a little bit. So, if you're in here looking, you don't know what you want, you see a big magnifier here, you see a magnifier up here, you might see one other places, like when you get to the bottom of the menu, you might see that magnifier again. What we're trying to do is direct you to search for something. If you can't find what you want, we really want you to search. We know it's tempting to just get in there and dig around, but it's going to take you longer. So I'm going to show you the similar type of thing using search. It doesn't matter which one I pick, this one and the one at the bottom are still the same. So when you first get here, we're going to give you, this is kind of like a sitemap. So before, when I showed you systems, regions, embryology, pathologies, those are all subsections. Those are all here too. So if you wanted muscle actions, you can click it and you wind up in the same spot. It's just a way to get somewhere if you don't know how to get there. Right? I'm going to go back to search. Now I'm going to search for something. I'm going to search for heart again. Hopefully I can read my handwriting. Yep. Uh, and this is kind of the same thing as we saw in the menu, but at the top there's a structure section, which I'm just going to skip for a second and come back to. But for the most part, what it does is it does a search for you, and then it buckets it by type, like that little button that was up here in the corner, filters before I showed you in the menu. It's sort of doing the same thing here. It's got gross anatomy, microanatomy, animations, right? You looked up heart animations before. They're all here, right? And I really didn't do any work. I just wrote the word heart, and here we are. So you can launch any views from here. Just to give you an idea how this thing is laid out. We tried to put, so structures, like I said, I'm going to get to in a second, but then gross anatomy models. Those mean they belong to our full body, our full human. Microanatomy means it's sort of like one of those plastic models you might have in a classroom, where it's an individual model that's not incorporated with the rest of the body. Gross anatomy lab, I'm going to get to later on, animations or videos. Cross sections are slices of the body that are paired with MRI or CT scans. Then we have a whole section for biology, histology, illustrations. We have this A&P course, which we're going to get to later as well. And then if you can get through the A&P course here, you can get to content that you own, like flashcards and decks and favorites and tours and lab activities and a whole bunch of quizzes. And so that's all by searching part. And now I'm going to clear this out for a second. And if I'm more of an advanced user and maybe I have a structure in mind, an anatomical structure, I can search for that right here too. So let me see if I can get pulmonary trunk. Okay. Pulmonary trunk. Okay. So at the top, now we're going to talk about structures. So at the top here, you're going to look at these little icons to kind of see what type of view you're going to launch. The first one that came up happens to be an embryology view, and that's not really what I'm interested in. I'm going to click on this one that says pulmonary trunk base of. And what this is going to do is it's going to assemble a view, right? These views down here, these are quick views, right? We made these are preset views that come with the app. But if I click this guy, pulmonary trunk base of, that's going to load me the individual structure and then try to give you a little bit of context by, we call it blasting on surrounding structures. So if I zoom out, you can see I'm in this person's chest. You can see I've got the pulmonary trunk. And then it's kind of up to me to build out from here if I wanted to. One quick way to do that is this button in the corner called Radius Blast. If I hit that, it can start turning on surrounding anatomy, which is a really quick way to get stuff on screen. Um, and if I happen to not know where something was and I'm in a view, this is a different type of search. So down in the bottom here, something called anatomy search, right? And let's say maybe in this case, you can use this to do two different things. You can use it to locate something that's already on screen, or you can use it to add something to the view. So in this case, maybe we're talking about pulmonary, pulmonary circulation. Maybe I'm looking for the trachea, right? So I'm going to write trachea down here. And you can see I have add. I'm going to add this trachea and then close this. And now we have a partial trachea added to the screen. If you know how to use the app, you might be familiar with this breadcrumb trail here. You can add more of it. I can add the whole lower respiratory system and kind of fill this view out. It's really up to you. And if maybe that was too much and I didn't want it, just want to point out that we do have a history up here where you can undo the different steps. Um, and the next thing I want to talk about is now we're in a view. We created our own view. We probably like it. We found some stuff. We located it with anatomy search. Now I want to talk about this little bit up here, which is called related content. So like I said, we like our menu. We think it's useful, but we really don't want you in that menu. We want you in the content. And related content is almost like a little curated mini menu for you. So for example, if I was interested in this pulmonary trunk, every time you click on something, this is going to change, or for the most part, things are going to change. So maybe I see, all of a sudden I see this view and I like it. And I say, well, let me have that view instead. Right now I can see how these pulmonary vessels interact with the bronchioles and the bronchi. And then if I want to learn even more, I can select something like maybe one of these, this tertiary bronchus segment, and I can see that this app has been curated so I can now learn about the smaller branches, smaller microanatomy, alveoli, and I can click around in here and learn about even more. When I say learn, I'm just clicking on things, but you can hit this little button here to read about everything. This is called the definition button. And then I can even go further, depending on what I have selected. Now I have this little alveolus here. I can click there and see this on its own, kind of learn about the different parts. And depending what I've clicked, like I mentioned, this will change. So now I can go in here, and here we are in illustration. This is about, some gas exchange. This has a couple of stops to it. This is a histology slide. And then even these slides have related content where this might start reading out loud, but here's an animation on external respiration where I can learn even more. And then I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet, but up in the top corner, this is our view navigator. Anything you've been to in this session is going to get recorded here, so I can step backward in time all the way back, until I first opened the app. And I think that's what we wanted to cover with search, just, really hammering home that point that if you're looking for something, just try and search for it. You'll get there much, much faster. All right. Now I'm going to go on to what we're calling these things. Touch point number two. I think one of the most popular features in the app, uh, a lot of, I think one of the things that most people spend a lot of time on are muscles and bones, right? Seeing how joints work, seeing where muscles originate or insert on, checking out innervations, muscle actions, things like that. And we have, I'm sure view to go. Let me see. I'm going to go into, let me use my search because I'm telling everyone to use search. Let me look for maybe hip in here. I think you don't want to. Okay. And say I'm interested in learning the muscles of the hip. Right, here's a good preset view for us. And a long time ago, and still now, a lot of the way people learn the muscles, let me see if this will work here. We've got this page from OpenStax, which is sort of a free online textbook. And a lot of learning anatomy is just straight up memorization. So in this case, we're looking at the pelvic girdle and lower limbs, and you can see I've got a lot of muscles of the hip here. And you'd wind up looking at a chart like this, right? If you look across the top, we see, the origin insertion, what muscle is, what muscle action it performs, what group it's part of. And I think for now maybe we'll look at this gluteal group in the middle. And kind of see we got gluteus medius right in the middle of the screen here. It's telling us that it's hip abduction, and it's telling us it originates on the external surface of the ilium and it attaches to the greater trochanter of the femur. And then you need a few different pictures to really get that, get that visual in your head. But if we go back to Visible Body Suite, we think we solved that same problem, but probably in a much more engaging way. So in here, this guy is gluteus minimus, which is the muscle I just looked up on the chart. If I hit this definition button, I can read about the origin, insertion, innervation, action, and blood supply. But what I want to draw your attention to is up in the top here, you've got this little red pin. Sometimes this is a red pin, sometimes it's a rainbow-looking pelvis, sometimes it's something else. But this is what we call an explore button, which lets you explore, in this case, this muscle in greater detail. So I'm going to click that pin, and we're now in what we call a muscle detail view. We've got sort of four different things across the top here. The first one we call attachments. So the bones now have this red and blue origin insertion paint on them, and the muscles have origin insertion pins. Right, so this is telling us that this muscle originates on the ilium, and I can either go down here and click this pin, or I can click this here, and it's going to take us on a little ride to show us the insertion down lower. And if I happen to click some of these buttons up here, like blood supply, that'll show us the artery that supplies it, all the way back up into sort of a larger branch. Same thing with the nerve up until maybe spinal root. And then this button here is details, which will show it all together. And we talked about related content before. This muscle, I think, said is it hip abduction? Abduction of the thigh. So one of these muscle actions, probably, I'm not sure which one it is, probably this guy, is, yeah, hip abduction. And I can go in here, right? This is all movable, composite, and sort of go to the back. This guy's gluteus medius. I can hide him. And we were learning about gluteus minimus, which is this guy, and I can then see it in action. Okay, so that's if you're coming from the muscles perspective, right? I came in here learning about muscle groups. But let's say I want to learn more about from the bones perspective. If I click on a bone up in the corner here, now I have a little rainbow pelvis. If I click that, these are our bony landmarks. So if I go in here, these little rainbow colors, if I click on each one, it's going to let me know what it is, right? In this case, greater trochanter, right? This is probably going to say neck. And I can check out all the little landmarks, all these little notches on here, and learn about the bone itself. And then if I want to see what muscle is attached to this bone, again, from the bone's perspective, I'm going to hit muscle attachments. And if you zoom out, you can see I've got pins all the way down. And I just want to stay up in the hip for now. And if I hit this pin, you can see I just turned on gluteus minimus. And I can go through and turn on as many of these pins as I want. Right? And again, we're talking about the bone's perspective, what muscle is attached to me. And then now, so that's a good, easy way to get here. I want to show you two other ways. One of them is super powerful, and the other one is a little faster, possibly. So I'm going to go to muscles and kinesiology, and we have this muscle index at the top. And in here, again, I have a search. If I write gluteus in here, I can find gluteus minimus. Right, I've got a left and a right, and then I've got the muscle actions that it's involved in. If I click one of these, I think we were looking at the right side. This takes me to that same muscle details view. Right? So that's just a different way to get there. And now I'm going to show you what I think is the cooler way. I'm going to start here with a full skeleton, which is how the app starts in its default state. And we're going to learn about this hip joint. I can get my iPad to respect me here. Doesn't like my finger. Hold on. Let me just keep going. I'm going to turn off the ligaments. So now we're just left with the bones. Okay, now it likes me. And I'm going to use something at the bottom here. We've got multi-select. So normally when you select something, it's I tap it once, it's highlighted. I tap something else, that thing's highlighted, the first thing's not. Right? If I don't want anything, I tap the background. In this case, I'm interested in exploring the hip joint itself. Right? So I'm going to hit multi-select, and then I'm going to pick the femur and then the three bones that make up the hip. Right? You don't need to get this little labrum piece. And then I'm going to go over here. So this is called the systems tray. I'm not sure if I mentioned it yet. But in the bottom, there's this little pin icon. If I hit that, it's going to turn on. I'm going to deselect the bones. It's going to turn on the pins and the paint for all these bones together. So you might be saying, oh, it looks like what you just showed me. It's a little different because now I have control over everything in this view. So for example, if I click the pin on the gluteus minimus, I can see gluteus minimus. And then maybe I know that this guy is medius or maximus. I can turn that on and add that to the view. Right. And I can go on sort of, as much as I want to here, um, in combination with some other tools, right? If I pick this guy, let me see, inferior gemellus, if I go in here, I can use this breadcrumb trail and turn on the rest of the lateral rotators, kind of get bigger swaths of things, swaths of things on screen. Another way to do something like that, maybe now I want to see some nerves, right? Maybe I'm thinking about sciatica and kind of how the nerve goes to this area. I can use the systems tray. We're going to talk about the top for a quick second. This will let me affect a certain region. So right now I know I'm in the pelvis and hip and I'm on the right leg. So now anything I do in the system tray is only going to turn on structures in this area. So maybe I do want to turn the nerves on. So I'm going to turn on nerves. Now I can see how this sciatic nerve runs through here. Right, and I can turn on any anatomy I want. And the reason I thought this was so much cooler is because you're not locked into that one view about that one muscle or that one bone. You're sort of in the whole ecosystem. Right. And then I just want to show one other thing while I'm in the systems tray. This is kind of new down here. This is our muscles by layer. Let me just undo because I held it down too long. What you can do is add or remove muscles by layer, just like it sounds. So if I hit the plus, it'll keep adding more muscles. Right now, it's only adding muscles in the area that I have selected from here. But as you can see, as I tap that, it's going to go sort of up and down. It's a real quick way to get anatomy turned on and off, or muscular anatomy on and off. All right, so that was our pins and paint or origins, insertions, landmark feature. Let's see what's next. Okay, flashcards. Flashcards, I think they've been around for maybe 2, 3 years now. And when we talk to students, especially students, they're trying to learn, they're trying to memorize, and I think the tried and true way of doing that is with flashcards. And we looked at some other apps, like I think a lot of people know Quizlet or Chegg or maybe Anki for anatomy. And we didn't want to just recreate what a company who just makes flashcards does, right? We're not really, number one, we're not going to compete with that. And number two, we don't need more players in that same area. We want to do something that we think is cooler and better. So let me just tell you where flashcards are, and then I'll explain what they are. So we were originally on this home menu, right? Or maybe even back here in this home menu. If I look across, we call these the tabs. If I go to study, my very first subsection here is flashcard decks, and these are flashcards. Okay, so a flashcard is an individual card, and you assemble a flashcard deck out of your flashcards. In case you're wondering what the rest of these things are, these are mostly quizzes and lab activities across the rest of the way. So I have a deck here that I wanted to use called the webinar deck. First, I just want to talk about why our flashcards, why we developed our flashcards the way we did. And, one of the things that students told us was that it's difficult to source the images you might want. So a lot of people textbooks with their phone and then uploading them, things like that, or maybe even drawing little pictures out. And we thought we could solve that problem for people by letting them use the models in our app as the image, right? And then what we thought was, well, a flashcard is very static, right? It's only got a front and a back, and that's it. And ours might look like that, but it's actually very different. So let me jump in here. When I first launch the flashcard deck, it's going to give me a few options. I'm just going to hit start. And you can see that that flashcard didn't just load flat. That skull kind of flew in from space, right? And what you do here is this is your standard flashcard where you tap the screen, it'll flip it, and you're sort of self-testing, right? In this case, I kind of tried to make it a little bit of a mini assignment where it tells me to memorize the bones of the skull. And then this is where our flashcards really shine, right? Explore this view in 3D and locate the sphenoid and ethmoid bones. Notice how the skull fits together, protects the brain, and allows for the passage of nerves and vessels. So this right here, that's your sphenoid, and your ethmoid is in here. And when you look at the side of the head, it doesn't look like much, right? It looks just like any of these other bones. But when I hit this button, Explore in 3D up in the corner, what that's going to do is kind of rip off the flashcard layer and reveal the 3D model. So when I hit Explore in 3D, I'm now in this 3D model that was used to make the flashcard. And this just happens to be our disarticulated skull model. So you can see I have a little slider here where I can pull this skull apart. And then I can kind of explore right in there. And like I mentioned, the sphenoid bone right here, it doesn't look like much, right? It just looks like this little piece on the side. But once I open this thing up, if you double tap on something, it'll center for you. So I can just kind of zoom around it. And this was telling me to look for these little holes, right? Look for these foramen that are in here to see how spinal nerves go through. And then I'm going to look up here in my related content and say, "Ooh, I think I see some of that." And I click it. And here I am in a different view that's showing, right, how some of these nerves go through here. And then when I'm all done, I can use the view navigator at the top here to go back to this view. It was my exploding skull view. I can look at that ethmoid bone that we mentioned. And then I can hit this button at the bottom that says return to flashcard, right? So now I know everything. I've done everything here. I've explored in 3D. I'm in my flashcard. I'm self-testing, looking at these things, seeing if I know them. And then I can, thumbs up or thumbs down to move on to the next one. If you can hear my heartbeat the whole time. But this is our beating heart model. So this is to show that you can kind of put anything in as the base of a flashcard. It doesn't like my finger again. It'll come back eventually. So the point of this one is to identify each structure and describe the pathway of blood, right? So this is a flashcard we made, and we have, sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way around. And like I was mentioning with the flashcards before, is that flashcards are flat, and you have the view you have, and that's kind of it. One thing I remember struggling with was something saying, "Hey, the heart has 4 valves," and I'm looking at this thing and I see 1, 2, 3. I'm like, "Where's that other one?" And here it is. Here it says aortic valve, and I had written the word obscured. And what this lets you do, we're going to explore in 3D again, just to show that I can get in here and spin it around. I'm going to just pause this real quick and turn off some of these effects so I can find that aortic valve, right? Like I said, you can double tap to center on things and really see where it is, right? It's there. I can go up here and hide this thing and kind of see how it looks from the top. And then return to my flashcard, right? I'm going to say I know that one, move ahead. This is kind of like a little game with flashcards. So it's telling me to flip to the back and then match the joint labels to the correct location. So the way I would do that, this is the back. My iPad really doesn't like my finger today. I'm not sure why. Oh, there we go. Okay, so what it wants you to do is flip to the back and then edit this thing. So the way you do that is you hit these little 3 dots in the corner and hit edit flashcard. It's going to tell you you're going to leave the deck and you're going to say okay. And then what you can do is drag these things around. So imagine this is maybe an assignment you give to someone, and you want them to change the card and give it back to you. You could share this deck to them. They can save it, which I can show in a little bit, and then they can edit. So I'm going to just be real quick here and just say like, all right, that's my pivot joint. One of these is my gliding joint, my hinge joint, and kind of move things around. And then once you're done, you can save it, and then you can share it. So convoluted is this guy, or satellites convoluted is one of these guys' finger, whatever it happens to be. And then once I'm done, I can save this flashcard. Down here is the save button. I'm gonna hit save, and I'm gonna save a new flashcard. Then I can give it a name if I want to here, which actually I have to give it a name. Um, it'll be old test. And then I saved it. If I hit this alert down here, it'll take me to my flashcards. Should take a minute here. Flashcard deck, flashcards. I think I just named that test, but I'm not sure what I did with it. Oh, it's right here. It's just called flashcard. Um, and then what I want to show is how to share a flashcard. And this works with anything in the app. So this three dots on any thumbnail you see in the app will open this menu up. And one of the things you can do here is say share flashcard. This can give you some options. This one will open your email if you have email on the device. And this one will give you a QR code. I think most people know what QR codes are, but if you have a mobile device with a camera, you can hold it up and it can watch it like a link, or it can copy the share link and paste it. And then what would happen is you would ask me, if you're the teacher, you'd ask the students to share that link back to you. They would open the flashcard, and then you can kind of, grade it like not grade it like a quiz, but just, know that someone handed it in. All right. I won't spend too much longer on flashcards. Let me see what the last one was. This is another one just showing drawings, right? This is about terms of relationship. So one thing you can do in a flashcard is draw on it. Here we're using it to kind of convey the directions of the body. And then the last one, right? Label parts of conduction system. Describe which one does. Bonus, draw and label an ECG on the back. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to show you how you can draw real quick. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to edit my flashcard. It's going to be deck. And then we've got this little draw palette where I can go in and say, well, first thing I'll do is let me delete this text. And I'll draw my ECG real quick. Right? And then the other thing they're asking me to do is go in and label these different parts. It's really easy to do that. I can go in here and write my own label. Or there's a way to auto label where when I drag this over something, it'll just know what it is and fill the labeling for me. All right. So I think that was it for flashcards. Let's check my notes real quick. Yep. Okay. The next thing is A&P. So one of the things we've added more recently is A&P, or anatomy and physiology, which is what, a lot of people take. Anyone going into the healthcare field, you pretty much have to pass anatomy and physiology. And we have what we're calling a boot camp. It's kind of like the rest of the app, but it's organized differently. So when I get in here, you can see I have a bunch of different chapters covering all the topics of A&P. If I open one of these, I've got, so these are units and these are chapters within it. And each chapter has little activities. This menu can get kind of long and kind of big. So if you know what you want, I'm going to just keep saying the same thing. You probably should just search. In this case, I think I wanted to show, you can search by whatever you want. So I'm going to search for 40. I don't know if it's going to understand my 40.7 here. Yeah. So I'm going to learn about the stomach, and I just want to go through a couple of examples of sort of the end of this stomach chapter. So this is a histology slide. It has labels on it and has a little description on the side. If you don't want the labels on, you can go over here. You can turn them off, and so it'll disappear. Turn back on. You can step through them. And then I'm going to go down here to the next chapter. Right, this is our sphincters of the stomach. So we were calling these hot buttons on the side. They're sort of little activities. It's going to direct you. It's going to select something and direct you to it, just like you're, sort of on a tour. Right, I don't want to click through all these, but next chapter, talking about stomach vasculature, same kind of thing here. You can stop at any point and learn about whatever you want, just like anywhere else in the app. These views are curated though, and we don't let you add or take away because we want you to learn. These are like little bite-sized lessons. We want you to learn what's on the screen. And then when you're done, it's going to tell you your chapter is complete, and it's going to ask you what you want to do. And here we wanted to show you the quizzing real quick. So in this case, I want to take the quiz. It's giving me a little bit of information. It's telling me it's about the esophagus and about the stomach. It's telling me it's a 10-question multiple choice quiz. And it's telling me I need to pick the correct answer from a list of choices. And there's only one correct answer for each question. So I'm going to start my quiz. And this is your typical multiple choice. Something we've added recently are these little buttons where you can, I don't know if you can hear that, but it said circular out loud. This is good for probably, people who maybe can't pronounce certain words or, I gave it to my fourth grader to take a test and she was using this button the whole time to understand, different parts of the cell for words that she couldn't read. But what you do is you go through here and I'm just going to guess when you select the answer, you hit submit. And lucky me, I got it correct. It turns green. Then I can move on. And I'm not going to read this, but I'm going to pick something that doesn't even look like a real word. Deglutition. Hit submit. That one's incorrect. And I have the choice to move on or show an answer. So this is all self-testing, right? It's kind of like the flashcards. We're not submitting this anywhere. It's just the user testing themselves. All right, so that is a little bit of an overview of A&P. There's a lot in A&P. And, like I said, this menu gets kind of big, so I would be sure to use the search if you can. One thing I actually want to mention, one more thing. If you do want to take someone directly to any of these individual chapters, lessons, I talked about this little 3 dots before. I can hit this and hit share. I can make that share link and copy it and give it to somebody, and then they're going to go down here in this little button, paste that share link, and it will open the app directly to it. Right, so we talked about we don't want people on the menu, we want people in the content. If you've got someone that you really want to direct directly right at an asset, you can give them a share link to it. And that might be a good use, A&P might be a good use for that. All right. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is it was really about the dissect feature. So this whole webinar was supposed to be about our most used features, and our most used button in general is, let me just go to something I can dissect, is this button down here called dissect. And if you're in the real world and you are learning anatomy, you're taking things away to reveal things underneath. Like that's the reality of things. If you're in a 3D like we are, you can start here and take stuff away, or you can start, here, which is like the frame of the body, and add stuff to it. So you sort of have this reverse mentality where you can build the body rather than take it apart. But I want to talk about Gross Anatomy Lab and the dissect button. So I'm gonna go to the regions tab here, and I'm in human anatomy. I'm gonna go back to our friend over here, the filters, and I'm going to pick Gross Anatomy Lab. And you might say, what does that mean? We're going to see what that means. So to us, gross anatomy lab means it's sort of recreating your gross anatomy cadaver experience, where these models would be laying down on a table. I'm going to start with the first one, spine and back, because when I did gross anatomy, the back was the first thing that we learned. So you can see here we have a model on a table laying face down. This happens to be female. Our app has a male and a female. I just want to hit that real quick. Up in the corner here, we have a little gear for settings, and at the top you have a model row. If I flip that, now we have a male. All right, and then this is where maybe you would want to use this dissect button a lot of times. So I'm going to go to dissect, and we've already been, we're already generous to you where we've dissected off the superficial muscles on the left side. But let's say you wanted to do it, you would just go in and start tapping, and it would start removing, right? So this is our dissect feature. You can do this as many times as you want, all the way down to the cows come home. If you find yourself dissecting too many times or a lot, you're probably taking a long way around. But people do like dissecting down in here. I'm going to show this right now. We're prone, right? And he's face down. And if I hit supine, it's going to flip this guy over so I can then go on the front. It might be a little easier. I don't know. Dissecting from the front seems a little more useful because you can go through these not that many things, not that many layers to get down to, down in the stomach here. And then I'm going to see if AR is going to work for me. It usually does. You can get a reverse view of my desk, which I cleaned up, and it should be okay. But what we're going to do is try and flip this over real quick so my hands on one side. And I'm going to try and throw this thing in AR on my desk. So I hit this button in the bottom corner. So that little AR gear. Then it wants me to sort of look around. And it should find a surface for me. You might not like that it's sharing, but it usually finds something. Let me try one more. I think it's going to work, but let me try it again.
Chris, maybe you're too close.
I might be. I think it's because I'm sharing and it doesn't, this is an older iPad, it doesn't have a whole lot of power. All right, it might not work. Yeah, my iPad doesn't like me today. All right, I guess we'll skip it. We have plenty of videos on AR. Let me try one more time. I really don't want to give up. My whole iPad just isn't happy here. Oh, I just saw it. Oh, there it is. All right. Yeah, this iPad is just not happy that I'm sharing through Zoom. Anyway, if I stand up, you can see I now have this body on my desk and I can spin it around, reposition it. And the coolest thing, you probably can't see me, but I'm walking with the iPad and you can actually just push it through and see inside the body. So if you go back down here to the heart, somewhere here, you can actually go right inside here and look around. And this is super engaging for, especially for younger kids. AR is super engaging. And then we even got things like microanatomy. I can skip the let me watch this video. Yeah. So this is a smaller model, kind of hovering above the desk here. And same thing, you can kind of go in and just explore. And there's just something about, if I'm not giving people motion sickness, but there's something about holding a device and moving around that's just a little more engaging. And it works especially well with this back button with these, full body models like this guy. All right. So I think, Courtney, I think that was it, covering the five tips.
Yeah, I'd say that was good. And we do have a couple of questions that I did want to hold specifically until the end because there were some good ones. So, and if anybody has any questions now, feel free to pop them in the chat or use the raise hand feature or the Q&A feature as well. And I would be happy to unmute your microphone if you want to talk to Chris one-on-one, or if you're a little camera shy or voice shy, you can just pop them into the regular chat. So the first question that came in was actually more of a suggestion. This was earlier from Jacob, which was when you had turned on the muscle layers and you were showing like the 4 different layers.
Mhm.
He wanted to know if there were any plans to potentially do this for other systems, like say the nervous system.
It's definitely something we have heard that people find that useful. Obviously, it wouldn't be layers like superficially deep, but it could be sort of closer to, sort of fatter to skinnier, right? Closer to the spinal cord to peripheral, things like that. And maybe we even talked about having something we call it nerve tracing, where you could pick sort of a nerve down lower and trace it back to its root. So yeah, there definitely are ideas floating around to do something like that with the other systems. it's mostly circulatory and nervous that we were thinking would be useful. A lot of other systems don't have, they're not super deep or complicated like the others.
All right. And then, hold on, I'm just combing through. Um, we had a question come in a little bit later, also from Jacob, which was another suggestion about anatomy navigation. Jacob said this collapsible drop-down menu for A&P could allow more rapid navigation to systems that you'd normally need to scroll down to select. Then all of these views for a specific system could be viewed in a grid as opposed to a long scroll. But I think that's where filtering and or content search, could come in handy.
Yeah, the way it's an interesting idea. The reason it's like this is because it's more of a course than a book where you would, day one, you might start here and just sort of go through the list. And we're not thinking that you're hunting around in here as much like the rest of everything else I showed was more of a reference where you come back to it, where A&P is initially anyway, like a course where you start and you go all the way through. So that's why it's laid out this way. And if you know I don't know, maybe you're halfway through the year and you're on circulatory, you jump down to it. That's the reason it's organized the way it is. And yeah, I would agree that, using the search up here is definitely something you might want to do. Or I had shown, I had shown content search, how you can, write stuff in here and and you will get, results down in A&P from here as well.
All right. We had a question from Danielle, who was just curious about how you got the full skeleton to come up.
How I got it to come up in the first place. Well, I'm going to show you a trick. So first, I'm going to just close the app, maybe, and then open it again. And the very first thing that is loaded in Visible Body Suite is the full skeleton, and it's actually loaded underneath the menu. So if you just want like the world's quickest way to get to it, this little button in the bottom is going to lift up the menu, and you have a skeleton underneath, just as your starting point. But I think maybe what Danielle's asking is, I went to Human Anatomy and I just tapped the skeleton in the corner um, to get there, and that's in the top left for a reason because, like I said, we're virtual. We can do what we want. We can build a body up from the frame. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's how I got there.
I think that's pretty good. All right. Oh, we have a dev related question. So what API did you use to create these scenes? 3.js?
We work in 3D Studio Max, and we use files from 3D Studio Max called FBX, which exports with the models with materials. And then what you're looking at is actually Unity 3D's game engine. That's what we developed in.
I think that might have been everything. I'm just going through the Q&A.
Yeah, I have a question in the Q&A for Pamela about like, is there someone to ask about anatomy and technical questions? So the answer is partially. So technical questions, yes, definitely. We have a support team that is happy to answer any sort of like tech issues, right? Or your rep can always help kind of field those questions as well. But in terms of like anatomy content, that is not, yeah, like your rep won't necessarily be an expert in anatomy. So we can't field all of those like anatomy content questions.
So for anatomy related content questions, they can also write into our support, and support will immediately send them to, the experts that we have on the team.
Yes, good clarification, Courtney.
And I'm actually going to put into the chat that email right now. So for all tech and content related questions, feel free to contact support at visiblebody.com, and you typically will receive, a response within a day. Sometimes usually much faster.
And I just saw another question from Pamela. Are any of these images for body parts? Wanted to just briefly mention that we do have some cross sections. Chris, do you have the ability to just kind of show the click path for that?
The cross sections? Yeah. So
Yeah.
in case you didn't see what I did here, I'm in the systems and human anatomy. I'm going to go over the corner again, and I'm going to hit cross sections. I didn't bring these up before, but we can look at one now. So I'm going to hit thorax. This is pretty cool. It's going to be, these people ask about our slices. We don't use a machine to do this. This is us making slices that correlated to, I think it was maybe Netter's atlas of more common plates of cross section. But this is our model. It's cut. You can flip through the stack. You can flip to the other side, and then if I hit this button down here, you can see, a scan or a cadaver version of it, and
There
then
we go.
click these
So that
pins.
should answer your question, Pamela, about like the graphic design or any actual body parts. That MRI and cadaver kind of tabs at the bottom for these cross sections should be what you're looking for from my understanding. But let us know if you have other questions on that. Great. All set. Thank you, Chris.
Yep. I don't have three more questions, but I forgot to show one thing, Courtney, that I want to show real quick. Um, we know people don't really want to make a lot of content themselves. So we do offer stuff on our website. I don't know if anyone saw me do it before, but I'm in the flashcard deck section under study, and I have this get pre-made decks button. This is going to take me to the web. I already had a tab open here. And then we have all this content you can search through. These are all flashcard decks. We also have tours you can get. And you can do one of two things. You can hit a button to open it, or you can copy the link. And I'm going to go back to VB Suite. And like I mentioned, if you ever get a link, you want to paste it in here. See if I can figure out how to paste it. There we go. Launch it. And what that's going to do is it's going to launch the flashcard deck in preview mode, where you can then go through each individual card, flip them. And these are made by our teams here. We have medically trained experts and we have content reviewers. And this deck has 39 cards in it. If I don't want to flip through each one, there's this button here that'll let me browse through and kind of jump around right to each card. And you can see if you read down here, it says you're previewing an unsaved deck that was shared with you. Please save to unlock full functionality. If you hit save deck, we're going to give you the option to save the entire deck, all 39 cards, or you can go in here and choose individuals to add, and then these will be added into your library. We have the same thing for tours. So you don't have to create stuff, you don't have to create everything yourselves. And another thing that we heard when we were first making flashcard decks is people like to collaborate. So sharing a deck with a friend or a colleague is a great way to kind of pass work around or split the workload up.
All right, we have 2 minutes, so if anybody has any late breaking questions, now's the time. And I do want to mention, because a few people have been asking about the deck that you had showed, Chris,
Mhm.
if they could get their hands on it. And yes, I am going to be sending out that same deck in tomorrow's follow-up email, along with the recording link for this webinar. So everybody who attended today will have access to it.
Thank you, Courtney.
No problem. Along with some additional follow-up goodies, where I will be pointing people to some of those pages that Chris showed that have our pre-made content on there, so you can download any topic, tour, flashcard deck. We have lab activities as well. Lots of free content on our website that you can use in conjunction with Visible Body Suite. Right, we have. I think we've pretty much reached the end of it. So I just want to thank everybody so much again for joining us today and walking through some of these 3D models. Chris is now showing some of the animal structure and function models that we have in our biology section. And if you have any questions, feel free to, again, contact us at support@visiblebody.com. Or if you would like to request instructor access, we have that link in the chat that I will actually include that link as well in tomorrow's follow-up email. So if you don't currently have instructor access, we can get you instructor access.
Yeah, we are happy to help and would love to kind of keep walking you through it and helping you create even more glorious 3D classes. So just